The world of competitive gaming mice has been dominated by ambidextrous shaped mice, and that's because they're typically a little bit better for aiming. Your main options are something like the G Pro Superlight, the Razer Viper, the Razer Orochi, so many different options, but not a whole lot for the ergonomic shape for you right-handed boys out there such as myself who like something a little bit more comfortable for their gaming. But then Pulsar burst onto the scene with their Xlite and their Xlite Wireless last year, which was a banger of a mouse, and they're following up this year with, in my opinion, another banger, the Xlite V2 Wireless. There's also the Xlite Mini, which is the exact same thing as this, but a little bit smaller. They each come in at $79.95, and you can choose the black model, the white one that I have here, and there's also a red and a blue, both of which look very nice. Inside the box includes the mouse, a wireless dongle, a paracorded USB-C cable, and a wireless dongle extender you can use. It's got some stiff rubber padding on the underside so it doesn't move around on your desk too much. The charging cable is a super high quality paracorded cable, so if you end up needing to play with the mouse plugged in, you're not gonna have a bad time. The stock feet are PTFE, very nice and smooth, and I can see the advantage to maybe upgrading them and trying out the Pulsar Super Glides. I don't have those here, but I have heard that those can be pretty cool. Really curious to try them someday, but for now, the stock feet are very nice if you have no plans to change out the feet at all. This is my first Xlite mouse I've ever used, and I really like it a lot. I can see what the hype was about last year with the original Xlite, and now this year with the V2. I don't have the V1 to show you myself, but design-wise, the shape is the same, but there are fewer holes on the sides for a better grip experience. Feels a bit nicer, feels really smooth. And from what I've seen, the bottom has more weight taken out with some of these bigger holes, which may be an issue for some, not really an issue for me. Also, from what I hear, the weight balance is better on the V2 than it was on the V1. If you don't like holes at all, or the idea of the very open bottom bothers you, you're gonna want to look elsewhere. I haven't had any issues, nor have I heard of anyone else having any. That doesn't mean it can't be problematic, but for me personally, it's been a non-issue, and I see no dust inside the mouse whatsoever. The switches are Kale 8.0 switches, which are very popular, slightly newer switches that started popping up over I think the last couple of years. To me, they did feel a little bit heavier than I'm used to when I first got the mouse, but after a few weeks I've adjusted just fine. I've been maining the Ninjutsu Origin 1X for a bit and didn't know that this also has Kale 8.0 switches, and comparatively I feel like the clicks are lighter and easier to actuate on the Ninjutsu than the Pulsar. I have gotten used to the Pulsar, it just took a little bit of time. The side buttons are apparently micro switches from what I've heard. Not amazing to some out there, but I think they feel satisfying and tactile, and I like the more subdued crispiness to them. And the scroll wheel is fine enough. Spammable for clicking, not too much resistance. There are times when I rapidly click the Pulsar and it doesn't always actuate every time. I should be clear, this has not affected me in-game at all. It's just something I kind of discovered while clicking around in the mouse for fun without it plugged in, because I like how the clicks feel and sound. As far as actual in-game use, I can't think of any times I've actually had to click the mouse that way, so I really don't see it being an issue. I wouldn't worry about it. It uses a 3370 optical sensor, which is the same sensor you can find in mice like the Fnatic Bolt, mice from Ponage, and the XM1R, which is considered by many to be a fantastic endgame mouse, even though there's no wireless option available just yet. Sensor performance has been phenomenal, no complaints about it at all. It is a top tier sensor, and I am no professional who really has had any problems with sensors except for maybe a couple very cheap mice. The Origin 1X uses a 3335 sensor, and I know people have had problems with that. I haven't really noticed any huge issues when using this, although I have not used it a ton in the time I've had it compared to other mice like the Orochi V2. So take that with a grain of salt. I think that the 3335 on this is fine, and comparatively, the 3370 on the Pulsar is going to be much better. I wasn't recording this match, but I won. Look. That's me. I did it. With this. I couldn't find any specifics as to how many hours you get out of the battery life, but I haven't really had to charge this thing at all, and I've been using it non-stop since I got it out of the box a few weeks ago. I imagine it's probably somewhere around 70 hours. That's what the original Xlite wireless was. So I imagine this is either going to be the same or better. For the dimensions, you're looking at about 122 millimeters length, 42 millimeters high, 66 millimeters in width, and it weighs in at about 59 grams. It's a fairly larger ergo shape, but it's not massive. Here it is compared to the Death Adder, which feels a bit larger to me for sure. The Death Adder, of course, has those famous flaring triggers it's known for, where the Xlite has more of a downward slope on the right side of the mouse on the right trigger. The shape is kind of similar, but the Death Adder definitely feels wider. Here it is compared to the Logitech G403. If you have a G703, it's the same exact shape as the G403. It may look like the Xlite has a larger footprint than the G403, and maybe it does. The 403 has a hump that kind of fills up more toward the back, and therefore I feel like the 403 feels bigger in my hands. I don't own a Glorious Model D, but from what I've seen online, the shape and dimensions are very similar. Palm grip is okay with this mouse. I think I feel a little bit more comfortable with a fingertip grip, and I can claw grip. My hands are 19 centimeters across and 10 centimeters down, give or take. That's about 7.5 inches to 4 inches. And at that size, I find this mouse to be very comfortable, but it could be even a little bit smaller in my opinion for something like a fingertip grip. There is still, of course, the Xlite Mini, so if you want to do a fingertip grip with the Xlite, I think that is the way to go. Of course, there is also the X2 now, which is definitely a viable option, but I don't have that yet. We're talking about this one. You can totally use this thing driverless out of the box without downloading any software. There's no DPI button on the mouse, but just by holding a few of the buttons at the same time, you can toggle between the 4 preset DPI settings. There is software available if you want to do any fine-tuning, like more specific DPI settings, adjust the polling rate, liftoff distance, etc. By default, the polling rate is 1000 Hz and the liftoff distance is 1 millimeter. You can also reprogram the buttons with up to 4 profiles, set up macros, actually a surprising amount of customization. Overall, I really like this mouse. I tend to switch between mice on the regular. I switch between ambidextrous shaped ones, ergonomic shaped ones, but I think when it comes to an ergo shape, I'm going to be reaching for this one. This one's definitely a banger and a big contender for best mouse of 2022 in my opinion. There is the competition of the Razer Death Adder V3 that I've been hearing about. I don't have one to test, but Razer, if you're watching, holla at your boy. Do you know how many of these things I sold for you? But as for the Xlite, I think that this is definitely a mouse you should consider picking up if you're in the market for an ergonomic shaped gaming mouse that's going to be super lightweight and really reliable. And at just over half the price of the Death Adder V3, I think it's definitely way over half the value and performance of the V3 as well. And if you're looking for an ambidextrous shaped mouse, Pulsar did just drop the X2 and X2 Mini. I don't have those yet, but I am expecting to hopefully get at least one of those in the future for another review. So stay subscribed for that. And I've got other mice reviews as well as other things. Just if you're new to the channel, just look at my other videos, you see what I've got to offer, and subscribe for more of that and more of some other interesting things that are in the works for those of you who maybe like the gaming related content and not so much the tech stuff, which if that's the case, you probably are not seeing this part of the video. If you do want to pick up this mouse, I will have a link in the description. I'll have a link to Pulsar's site as well as possibly an affiliate link to the Amazon listing for this. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to watch another video, you can watch one of these here. And I am going to just fade into the darkness slowly over the next few seconds.